first political obstacle is getting governments to recognise that offshore wind is cheap. Look at the cost reduction of the last 2 years. Look at the recent auction results. There's still a perception out there in the minds of some governments that offshore wind is expensive and unaffordable. No, it is not. It is almost competitive with conventional power generation already.
What we're trying to do on cost reduction in the UK, it's the same as everywhere else in the world. We need a really strong, predictable regulatory environment. So in the UK, that means we need to know how much funding there's going to be in the CFD, how many auctions there are going to be, and the government's long-term vision for the sector.
Second challenge we face is to get countries to coordinate their respective activity on offshore wind. We've talked about what the EU is doing with the 10 countries around the North Seas, regional cooperation on the grid development, on the spatial planning, on the legislation. The countries around the Baltic should replicate that as well.
We then help bring industry together to talk about sharing technical innovation and development. And the last thing we do is making sure that we've got a smart, flexible grid infrastructure that can not act as a barrier if we bring forward massive volumes of offshore wind.
So cost competitiveness is really key to the future success of the offshore wind sector, and we need to keep driving that. To me, two things that are incredibly important in doing that. One is competition and making sure there's lots of competition in the marketplace, and the second one is innovation, and innovation is absolutely key.
The main political and economic barriers to offshore wind development in the UK are the same as those that facing many other renewables actually, or other sectors of the economy. Straightforwardly, industry needs enough intervention in the market to set a stable and level playing field for development. You know, this is not about government coming in and micromanaging, but it is about government saying to a global marketplace, the UK wants to be competitive, wants to retain its world leading edge, and for that we need to see a strong commitment to volume in 2030.
So offshore wind currently supplies around 5% of UK energy, electricity, and that is increasing. So by 2020 we expect that to double up to 10%, and with that, which we can perceive in the 2020s, could be doubling again up to 2030. So increasingly this is becoming a really important technology for UK supply mix.
On the economic side, I think some of the challenges facing industry is this subsidy-free question. If we're seeing prices drop as quickly as they are, at what point will the industry say to government, we think we can do subsidy-free? And then what does the market design look like for delivering energy capacity in the UK, all energy capacity? Because we're talking about renewable energy being competitive with the incumbent forms of generation. Economically speaking, it is a fascinating time to be in the energy sector.
There are work that we do in terms of our knowledge management and working beyond our core role. Things such as cost reduction pathways, which kind of set the agenda with industry about getting down to £100 a megawatt hour by 2020. Now that target's been delivered 3 or 4 years early.
We need 4 gigawatts per annum minimum to be deployed over the next 10, 15 years to keep up the current pace of cost reduction.
As we've seen, there are a number of issues facing the offshore industry. We'll be taking a closer look at some of those over the coming months. Given the recent product launches of some of the biggest players in the industry, including MHI Vestas' 9.5 megawatt turbine, we'll be taking a closer look at how technical innovation is lowering the cost of energy.